So what's the real difference between true worship and just, going through the motions? It's a question that really obsessed the 16th century theologian John Calvin. And for him, getting it wrong wasn't just some small mistake. He believed it was a dangerous corruption of faith itself. So let's dive in and unpack his argument for why all glory must go to one God and one God alone.
You see, for Calvin, this wasn't just some dusty old academic debate. No, this was the central battleground for faith. How do you show proper reverence without accidentally slipping into idolatry? He was convinced that even with the absolute best intentions, it's incredibly easy to cross that line. And that crossing it has massive consequences. So where does Calvin even begin with all this? Well, he starts by drawing a really sharp line between pure religion and what he calls its corrupted cousin, superstition.
And his definition of the problem is, well, it's pretty fascinating. See, for Calvin, superstition isn't really a lack of faith, it's almost an excess of it. It's what happens when people aren't happy with the simple, established rules and start adding all these unnecessary rituals and complexities. What he calls a needless mass of inanities, which is just a fancy way of saying a giant pile of meaningless extras.
Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you've got true religion. It's stable, it's focused, it keeps believers connected to the one God. But then you have superstition, which he sees as just chaotic. He uses phrases like giddy license, which basically means it's out of control, no rules, and says it flits hither and thither. It's totally unfocused, and it just clutters up the divine space, surrounding God with a whole crowd of other figures.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the danger that Calvin saw. The problem isn't that people are rejecting God. No, the real danger is that God's glory is being diluted, piece by piece. Think of it this way. It's like taking all the authority from a company's CEO and just handing it out to a dozen different managers. I mean, the CEO is still there, sure, but their unique power has been fatally weakened.
So, to justify this parceling out of God's glory, a really clever distinction was created between two different types of honor. But as far as Calvin was concerned, this distinction was a dangerous lie, and he was determined to take it apart piece by piece.
The whole argument really hinged on these two Greek terms. The first one is latria. This was defined as the supreme, absolute worship and adoration that is due only to God. On this point, pretty much everyone agreed.
All right, so the second term is doulia. Now, this was presented as a lesser, totally different kind of honor. You can think of it as a deep respect or reverence, the kind of thing you could give to saints or angels without supposedly stepping on the toes of the latria that belongs to God. Seems like a pretty neat solution, right? A way to have your cake and eat it too. But Calvin, he wasn't buying it. He started asking, does this distinction even hold up when you look at the language? He went all the way back to the original Greek and Latin roots of these words because he figured the proof had to be in the language itself.
And this, folks, is where his argument gets really sharp. When he digs into the roots, he finds something amazing. Latria, the term they used for God's supreme worship, it just means honor. But doulia, the supposedly lesser term for saints, actually means servitude or even enslavement. I mean, think about it. Servitude is a way bigger, way more binding commitment than just giving someone honor.
So Calvin's conclusion here was just devastating for the other side. The very distinction that was created to protect God's honor actually did the exact opposite. It assigned the greater concept, total servitude, to the saints, while leaving the lesser concept of mere honor for God. That supposedly clever workaround? It completely flipped the proper order of worship on its head.
Okay, so after totally dismantling the argument with logic and language, Calvin turns to his ultimate authority, Scripture, and there he finds a clear and, in his mind, totally consistent verdict.
And what he finds is this really consistent pattern in the Bible. First up, the rebuke. The Apostle John kneels before an angel, and the angel immediately and sharply corrects him. Then, the rejection. Christ himself rejects Satan's demand for worship, making it clear that reverence is for God alone. And third, the refusal. The Apostle Peter stops a devout man from kneeling before him. The message is crystal clear every single time. Any kind of worshipful reverence toward anyone but God, it gets shut down hard. So the lesson Calvin pulls from all this is surprisingly a psychological one. He basically argues that we as humans just aren't wired to make these super subtle distinctions. We think we can draw a clean line, but we inevitably end up giving away little pieces of God's honor to created beings. For Calvin, the risk of getting it wrong is just too high to even try.
And all of this brings us to the final, really powerful principle that holds his entire argument together. This isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about understanding the very nature of divine glory itself.
And this quote right here, this is the absolute core of it all. To have one God means to keep his glory whole, completely intact. In his view, you can't just pluck away even a tiny little piece of it, not one particle, and give it to someone or something else without fundamentally messing up the whole idea of one God. Let me put it another way. Divine honor, for Calvin, it's not like a pie that you can just slice up and hand out to your guests. No, it's an indivisible whole. The moment you give away even the smallest sliver, you haven't just shared it, you've profaned it. It's an all or nothing deal.
So, where does that leave us today? Well, it leaves us with a pretty challenging question. Look, Calvin was talking about saints and angels back in the 16th century. But what if we apply his principle today? What are the modern creatures that we give these little particles of our ultimate devotion to? Our careers, our politics, our social media presence? If Calvin is right, then anything that takes even a sliver of that ultimate glory is, in a way, a form of idolatry. It's a pretty provocative thought, for sure. Thanks for digging into this with me.